Okay. Om Sadashiva Samarambam Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam Ishwaro Guratmeti Murti Veda Vibhagine Vyomabda Vyapta Dehaya Dakshinamurtaye Namaha Savavedanta Sedanta Gocharam Tamagocharam Govindam Paramanantam Satguru Pranatoshmaham Om Om Shanti 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 Om Namaste. Hello everyone, welcome. So last week we did a Q&A that was not really a Q&A because I went on reading and commenting on the book, The Big Picture of Vedanta, and we have to see what we're gonna do today because I did not finish that chapter. There was a few little things that I could comment still, unless we decide to go into questions. If you have questions, so what do you think? And there is one question. There is something that David wrote to me talking about his private life and what he's gonna do and not do, and then he also wrote a kind of a question. So, any suggestions? Any contributions? Any questions? Shall we go?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. The last time we were commenting about Dharma, and I think it could be interesting to talk a little more about Dharma. And last time I asked the question that when we also say that we can say no to Ishwara sometimes.
Oh, yes. Yes.
You say that it's hard to discriminate when you have to follow your swadharma, your nature. Or for example, as a musician, I want to do a musician, but the shop of my father, it needs that I remain here. So, you know, we have to follow the role that I have in society, or I have to follow my nature, or maybe I have to follow the role in society, maybe at the beginning, and wait when it's I have time to follow my nature. What we have to do, maybe I can say no to Ishvara sometimes. I heard, also we say, but also Ramji says, I can say no to Ishvara, someone else will care about this, my father or the shop or whatever it is. And can we discriminate? Can we have suggestion about that? Because it's not so easy.
Those are very, very good points, because there is nothing is really black and white. Nothing is really like a straight fine line, clear line between Dharma and Adharma, right and wrong. I mean, as we know, there is what we call situational Dharma. So every situation, every circumstance is somehow it creates somehow a unique context in which the discrimination between Dharma and Adharma may take place in an expected or different way. So what I'm trying to say here is that fundamentally, dharmic actions, or to follow Dharma, is to act. Dharma is appropriate action to begin with, okay? To follow your Dharma is to act appropriately, okay? And timely as well, a proper action, and of course it is a karma yoga action or a sattvic action. It's a dharmic action. It's not a rajasic or tamasic self-centered action. So those good actions, they are called dharmic actions. So Dharma is appropriate response in a proper time as well. You understand? As we know, we can do good answers, good response, good actions, but if the timing is wrong, it may be not really appropriate because shoot, I should have done it yesterday. Too late. Yeah? So uh, Dharma is a proper. It's a nice, good for all, good for the benefit of the total, not self-centered. This is a dharmic action. So as you said, how can I say no? Let's open this other thing about how to say no and why to say no to Ishwara. We say no to Ishwara when because Ishwara is not a jiva, it's not a person, as we know. Ishwara is an intelligent system. It's a living, self-conscious, intelligent system. Ishwara is pure knowledge, pure sattva. And this energy, which is Ishwara, it structures everything by its laws and so on. And among all these laws that govern the human experience of life, we have the ethic karmic laws as well, and psychological laws. You understand? So these laws are there, and they serve the purpose to signal to human beings when they are going wrong in their way, in the direction of one's life. It's I'm taking a different direction here, and why? How do I know that this is not a proper, a good way of living? Because it's creating suffering, it's creating conflict. You understand? It's creating pain and not satisfaction. So in that context, a good action and the way we can say no to Ishwara, because Ishwara being this totality of laws, including again the anti-karmic and psychological laws. So it is this system, you understand? And within the system, we have the vasanas that we have the body, the macrocosmic body have all vasana, but we have the individual as in the microcosmic, we have the individual which is governed by its vasanas, you understand? So, and then how we say, when Ramji says, say no to Ishvara, is when we begin discriminate and we know that this vasana is not conducive to my spiritual growth. This vasana is not conducive to my discrimination for a sattvic mind, and it's not helping me. It's creating pain. It's creating conflict. You understand? I have been acting upon this vasana again and again, and I understood that it's not helping. It's making a mess out of my life and the life of people around me. And then what I say, no, Ishwara, thank you. So how I'm saying no to Ishwara? Because Ishwara is the total, is the system, and the vasanas that belong to me because they are the results of my previous behaviors and actions and words and so on. These vasanas are there in my causal body. When they present themselves to me as a tendency to act or to say things in a certain way, I have the opportunity to say no to my vasanas. And that's what Ramji means by saying no to Ishwara. You understand, Claudia? We are saying no to this self-reinforcing system, vasanas, tendencies that becomes conscious desires that compels us to say and act in a certain way. We say no to this system. This is what Ramji means by saying no to Ishwara. Okay? Now, saying no to Ishwara is one thing, but how we're going to act according to Dharma? There are two ways fundamentally that we do actions. We do actions moved by our likes and dislikes, you understand? Because we want what we want. We do things because we want to experience the results. The results, I want the results according to my desire, motivation. The desire is motivating my actions. They have as a goal to enjoy the results of these actions. So if I'm not a karma yogi, I'm going to be moved only by my desires to get what I want, to experience what I want. This is how most everybody act in life. Okay? So this way is most of the time not a dharmic way to live a life. You understand? because I'm not bringing in consideration the others, the environment, the other creatures, the other living creatures, you understand? And much less, I have no clue that there is such a thing as Ishwara. Ishwara, we can see Ishwara from a different angle, is the totality of all factors that brings about the prarabdha karma of all beings. You understand? The totality of all factors. The name, the Sanskrit name is Daivan. Daivan is a totality. So if we don't understand that Ishvara is in control of our prarabdha karmas, there's a system. You understand? The self-conscious system. If we are not taking account Ishvara, if we are not taking account the other creatures, the other beings, the other jivas, you understand? And then our actions are going to be self-centered. Okay? And this self-centered action is not a dharmic action. It may bring us a short-term good result, but there will be such a terrible price tag attached to that that the person is not able to enjoy that short-term positive results. For example, if I want to be rich and then I take a shortcut, I cheat and deceive and manipulate, and then I get $1 million. And then I say, oh, good. Okay, I got my goal here, my desire was fulfilled. I got a lot of money, but just imagine the impact it does in one's conscious mind or subconscious mind. The person is already fat. The person is going to tend to deal with a lot of conflicts by having cheat and deceive and manipulate, not to talk about the inner conflict that is going to undermine his ability to enjoy that $1 billion. There is a lot of price attached. Every time we do actions that are not really proper, adequate actions, timely, proper, adequate actions, actions that are with the kami yogi spirit, you understand? Take into account God and every other living creatures in the universe and the environment and so on. Now, going back to that example that I believe I mentioned last class. So if I have this tendency as a musician, but then some life circumstance brings about a situation that I'm the only provider in the family, and there is the shop of my family, and I hate to do that. My father is a butcher. I hate to be a butcher because it's nothing really for me, but I'm the only provider right now. You understand? And then what I'm going to do? I'm going to follow my inner talent and pursue my life as a musician and let my family go through a lot of hardship because of not being able to survive without my intervention in that shop. You understand? So something like that. What would be the proper action? You understand? It's clear that it is to sacrifice my desire, even if it is my most inherent kind of talent, that needs to be suppressed because the Dharma, the circumstantial Dharma is such that that is the most appropriate action. Okay? But the funny thing in all of that is that there are some exceptions to this rule. You understand? Let's look into the situation of Ramana Maharaj once again. So he was a child. At the age of 17, he had that epiphany that we all know. And then that epiphany somehow opened up a lot of new insights to that kid. And as a result, he left his family with a small note say, hey, don't look for me. You understand? I'm going to my father, Lord Shiva, and don't try to find out where I am because I'm going back to my father. You are not my father, you are not my mother, I go and the guy disappeared. So is this a proper, adequate Dharma action coming from a 17 years old child? So on looking at the surface level, I would say, no, this is not right. The mother was suffering, the father was suffering, the mother stayed many years trying to find out where he was gone, he was living, if he was still alive, she had this pain in her heart. You understand? So why it was not a big deal for him? Because he was being called on a higher level. You understand? There was something higher calling him, which was his spiritual destiny. You understand? There was something from another level, another order that was pulling him from that apparent reality. Because the Dharma of a child like him is to go to the school and to obey their parents until he becomes an adult, and then he has other stage of life, which is in the society and providing, getting married and getting children. But at that stage, on the books would say the Dharma of a child that is to start and obey one's parent. I mean, there's no room for saying, no, the Dharma is also taking off without telling your parents where you go. You understand? Leaving everybody home full of concern and preoccupation and so on. So why it was an exception? Because there was something higher compelling him to move into his spiritual destiny. And why you can tell that there was nothing Adamic about that? Because he did that without any conflict. You understand? There was no conflict in his mind. He knew that he was following something that was much higher, and therefore it was not violating any circumstantial Dharma in his life. You understand? So he did that, and there is another passage many years later on, uh, maybe 30 years, 40 years later on, or even 50 years later on, a guy came to him in Tiruvannamalai and told him, Bhagwan, I came here, I'm your disciple, I'm your devotee, and I'm following your footsteps. And I came here, I left my family, I left my business, I left everything in home and in the city where I always lived. And I'm already looking for a nice cave here. And I already shaved my head, and I'm dressing up like you, and I'm going to meditate until I become you or something like that. And then he looked at the guy and he said, by all means, that Ramana was not a man of many words. He said, by all means, if the power that took me away from my family at that age of 17, if the power that took me away from them is the same power moving you here now, by all means follow that power. And he left the guy at that. He did not say anything more. You understand? Just look, understand, see if the power that is compelling you to leave everything is a real power. If you really following something that is the highest possible Dharma. What is the highest Dharma of all of us? Is to search for our true nature, the self. You understand? Self-knowledge and moksha is the most ultimate, the truest Dharma of every human being. Anything we do which is in harmony with that is in harmony with our highest Dharma, you understand? And that does not bring conflict. Whereas if I'm doing that, but if I haven't realized that that is really my Dharma, you understand, self-knowledge and moksha is my real Dharma, and I'm willing to do anything to follow that impulse, that spiritual call, you understand? If I haven't had that clear understanding, and then I'm gonna maybe doing that. Oh no, I want to be spiritual. I'm leaving all my obligations, all my duties, all my responsibility. If I'm doing that to escape the problems and the difficulties and the complexity of living the world, and then I'm gonna do that, and I'm gonna carry a lot of guilt and inner conflicts. You understand? I'm going to feel bad about myself, and the mind is gonna be further disturbed and unable to really develop the peace and the sattva needed for doing this work. You understand that there are exceptions, Claudio? It all depends on our inner condition, you understand?
Yeah, it's very subtle. It's subtle. Sometimes we have hard decision to take, and but it helps, it clarifies, because it's an important point to understand what we mean when we say no to Ishwara. It's because I say no to Ishwara. If it leads me, I have to recognize, I have to discriminate, I have to think about it and see if this bring me to more spiritual growth, more sattvic mind, not creating conflict. This is I have to take. This is what I have to think, right?
Yeah, you have to see it's all depends on how clear one is in one's inner, condition, mind, emotion, mental, emotional condition. For example, I have heard Brandon say a few times, I think, wow, you are in this kind of caught up in a certain karma. Yeah? So no problem, just move on, leave it. Somebody else is going to take care of that shop, as you said. You understand? I heard Ramji saying a few times like that. So if you are able to just move on, and this movement does not carry with itself a lot of guilt and and bad feelings about yourself. You understand? And if you are really together and clear that you are doing that because there is a higher
Yeah,
goal, which is a spiritual goal, and then that is not going to bring inner conflict. You understand? But if you do that, the same person doing that, half-heartedly, and then it's going to carry a lot of conflicting feelings, and emotions that are going to undermine his discriminating faculty. You understand? So it all depends on how clear we are, and we get
mm,
clear about making those moves when we understand our higher and higher and higher dharmas. And the ultimate dharma is moksha, self-knowledge and moksha. And for that, we can sacrifice these. You understand? So for that, we
yeah,
can sacrifice these, but we cannot sacrifice these just because of escapism. Trying to escape the problems and the complex, escaping my karma. That needs to be resolved. You understand? So a lot of people escape the world in the name of the spirituality, and they get stuck somehow. They may have to come back to the world later on. I have had a few friends that escaped the world 40, 50 years ago, and they're still in India. And I know because I knew some of them, their mind. I knew because when I had to come back to the world and I had to go through a lot of challenges and frictions, trying to make a living again. And then when I began having success, I was still keeping contact with them, and I know that inside of them there was some jealous, some envy, like, oh, you did something that I'm trying to avoid. I could read that, you understand? Because it all depends on how clear we are in our inner condition. You understand? So one person can live. I mean, I have met during the time of Osho Rajneesh that there was this call of celebrating life, of living freely and going for enlightenment under the instructions or the philosophy or the view of Osho, so you celebrate and you meditate and we are going to be enlightened and so on. So I saw a lot of mothers leaving their children to follow that call. And I know how conflicted they became and how much painful it was for them and the children later on, in a sense, to leave behind, because those calls, those movements, they were actually self-centered. I know because I was there. It was so beautiful to live around the ashram there and the communities of Osho Rajneesh, that people were doing self-centered actions in the hiding behind that. No, this is my spiritual call. This is the ultimate. No, we want to enjoy. We want to live there to stay away from the responsibilities and the duties and the obligations of being a father, a mother.
yeah,
We want to have a good time. You understand? And then that brings conflict, that brings papakarma, and it makes it even more difficult for us to grow. You understand? In that sense, I'm
yeah,
thankful to Papaji when he called me and said, you go back to the world and take care of your son, giving him education and so on.
mm, yeah.
Anything else about this subject? It's not easy. Go ahead, Lynn, please.
We do that. I was just thinking that it really takes a sattvic mind to be able to moment look at yourself with those values. You know, that's a big job.
It is. We do that. Huh? I was about to say the same thing that you just said. You know, it requires so much sattva. You know, it's clarity to again and again make choice which are in harmony with Dharma. You know, which are really dharmic and not getting confused because there are so much entanglements and attachments and desires and fear undermining our clarity, you know, intellectual discrimination. It's not easy. It's not simple, you know, to really see things very clearly and say, no, it's time to make a decision here, and you know, and with clarity that does not drag with itself any kind of regret or guilt or anything. You know, you just say like, no, I'm clear about that. I just move my way. Yeah, it's not always easy. Yeah, to know the scripture and to understand, study, and understand and assimilate these teachings of the scripture helps a lot. But after all, we need to have assimilated it to such an extent that we can take decisions without waiting, you know, and just moving forward. The Kami Yoga attitude is an attitude of sacrifice. So we sacrifice our likes and dislikes, our attachments and so on for our higher goals. Understand? Not for our new desires. We do it for our higher goals and so on. So it is a life of sacrifice. We sacrifice our likes and dislikes, you know, and it's not always easy to put it all into the equation, you know, and say okay, and I'm sacrificing my likes and desires, but at the same time, you know, I have my spiritual life, my spiritual goals, and I need to keep my mind sattvic and clear, and I need a proper environment. So to put it both together, the need of the total and my inner need, you know, it's quite a talent. It requires quite a talent, you know. Yeah. It reminds us of the Ram Raja. No? Ramji has the name of Ram. I heard that he gave his name to himself. I don't know why he gave his name, but it's the Dharma Ram. I'll say Rama Raja. Ram Raja, the king of no, sorry, Dharma Raja. Dharma Raja is the king of Dharma, and the king of Dharma is Ram. And Ram has been so dharmic that he was able to sacrifice everything that it was his for his right, you know, not for legal rights, but he should have succeeded his father and be the king, and he had all the skills and the mind and the balance and everything, and yet it was denied to him as by his father, and he had to live in exile, and still he was honoring his father for the rest of his life because of his sense of dharma, you know. So this is a very, very dramatic, extreme example of following dharma, sacrificing, you know. everything for this higher goal called Dharma. Of course, all of that is disputable, you know. I don't know if everybody would go to the extreme of what he did, if he really did it, you know, or if it's just something to present us an extreme example, you know, in history of what extreme Dharma, you know, following Dharma could lead one, you know.
Well, at the moment, Arlindo, I find myself very dharmically challenged. I'll tell you a situation which is happening in our life at the moment is we rent out a flat and this is our only form of income. And the tenant we've got living in the flat is very abusive and sort of refusing to pay. And it's all come to a head this week with her being very abusive and really upsetting. I know her. And I find myself wanting to break Dharma in one way, wanting to go and evict her, but holding back because I know that this is not the correct thing to do. We can't legally, we haven't got any grounds because the tenant has many more legal rights than the actual landlord. And so we can't actually do anything. And this is very challenging. It's, yeah, like you said, like Lynn said, it requires a very sattvic mind because she becomes abusive and then this projects rajas within myself and then I want to go and do something about it. So that's our situation. And to do the right thing dharmically, like you say, is complicated and not easy.
Yeah. It's not easy. This is a difficult one, yeah. It's it's happening a little bit in my case as well, and we have to look at the laws nowadays in the USA. The states are protecting more and more the landlord and putting the laws
More the tenant.
And protect the tenants and put the problem on the shoulder of the landlord rather than in the holders of these mortgage companies, because in the United States every landlord has to serve a mortgage, you know. So we serve a mortgage here and then we pay the mortgage and we take a little positive cash flow. So why not to allow the landlords not to pay this mortgage for the time being, you know? But no, they protect the big guys up there, and now to look good, they want to protect the tenants, and the small guy in the middle, like the landlord, is being sacrificed in this context, you know. So it's not easy. We have to see the laws, and ultimately we have to accept what the laws, the law of the humans, of the man says, you know. And we don't want to go there and fight with them because it could take us to even more trouble, you know. But
absolutely, yeah.
And
I believe karma will.
You believe
Sorry,
what?
continue. Sorry. I believe karma will take its course, and sooner or later this situation will pass, and you know, everything will work out fine. It's that, but it's just the meantime.
Yeah, so I mean, you have to be creative and try to find other source of income, or save, and simplify. You know.
Yeah.
We need to. Some of us may need. Many of us will need to learn to live more simply, more poorly, more basically. You know. Yeah. So David left us with a kind of question here. Does living a sattvic lifestyle conducive to self-knowledge include sattvic activities? So what do you think? Of course, no? Living a sattvic lifestyle conducive to self-knowledge, it must include sattvic activities. So we cannot have a sattvic lifestyle and then do tamasic actions or rajasic actions. So the tamasic, the sattvic lifestyle is there to support and help us to do more and more sattvic, dharmic actions, not tamasic, rajasic actions. You know, of course, include sattvic actions. Yeah, a rajas must be present to take initiative, like scheduling Vedanta class and tamas to sleep. So he's saying like, but rajas must be present. Yes, of course, rajas must be present, otherwise we don't do any action. Okay, or at the most we do some lousy tamasic action. So we need the rajas to do sattvic actions. Otherwise, we can stay with a sattvic mind, but we don't move to bed from bed because we don't have rajas enough to stand up, to get up from bed, right? So we need a combination of these three energies. They are always present. No, there's no conflict about that. When we say a sattvic lifestyle, a sattvic activities and so on, it's this is a lifestyle and a mental condition and certain actions that are more and more influenced by sattva because there is more and more sattva, proportionally speaking, in one's body-mind complex. So rajas and tamas are always there, and they need to be there in their proper proportions. Yes, rajas must be present to take actions. So is a sattvic lifestyle is a sattvic lifestyle one with predominant sattvic activity with relatively low amounts of rajas or tamas? So is a sattvic lifestyle one with predominant sattva? Of course, sattvic lifestyle is the one that has more sattvic actions. What is a sattvic action, by the way? What is the difference between a sattvic action and rajasic action? Rajasic action is not as bad as tamasic action. A tamasic action is an action that's someone who does not have much rajas, does not have much tamas, does not have much sattva, does not have much rajas, has a lot of tamas, but yet it has some desires. And these actions are going to be done totally self-centered, not really honest, straightforward. They're going to be sneak and trick and manipulating actions, deceiving, and cutting corners or cheating. So those actions, they are worst possible actions. They are totally self-centered. And because the individual does not have enough rajas and sattva to discriminate and do a better job, you understand? It's going to act almost unavoidably violating Dharma because the person does not have enough rajas even to play by the rules, to develop the skills, and then to begin interacting and working and functioning society, following the rules in a way that one may be successful, accomplished in their material needs and so on, without cheating, deceiving, and breaking the rules, violating the Dharma. So this is a tamasic. It's the most lousy, the most detrimental kind of actions or activities that we can have as far as growing and elevating ourselves spiritually, and being a happier and happier person. So better than tamasic actions are the rajasic. The rajasic actions are people that are highly motivated. They have a lot of energy. They don't know what better to do with all this energy, and then they go into the world and they want to accomplish material gains. They want to be successful in the world. Understand? So they have a lot of rajas. They have some sattva that allows them to play, following the rules of the game, play without breaking and cutting corners and deceiving and cheating. They play following the rules. It requires a lot of rajas, some sattva, and then they are going to compete and so on, and then they are going to accomplish what they accomplish. But totally, very much self-centered, but yet they are not violating Dharma. They are not cheating and deceiving and killing in any of these bad actions. So rajasic actions is a better action than the tamasic actions. So what is a sattvic action? It requires some rajas, of course, you understand? It requires some tamas, otherwise the person will never really sleep. And then after a few days, it's going to be completely crashed. But this sattvic is an action that is not, it does not violate Dharma. It's an action that is presented, taking into account Ishwara and the needs of the field, of the Dharma field, the needs of the total, as Ramji likes to say. So it's a spiritual religious action that requires the understanding of Dharma, proper action with a proper attitude, taking account Ishwara, taking account all the laws governing the field, and the needs of the total. And then this action is an action of sacrifice. Why? Because somebody is going to sacrifice one's desires, for the need of the total. You understand? So this is a sattvic action. So he says, so is a sattvic lifestyle is the one with predominant sattvic activity with relative low amounts of rajas and tamas? Yes. So you have rajas, you have some tamas there, but dominantly in your mind, you are sattvic, you are clear, and you have to be so sattvic to begin following Dharma rather than following my desire to get what I want. Again, you need so much mental clarity, so much spiritual knowledge, spiritual understanding in order to control this compulsiveness of getting and wanting what I want. You understand? It takes incredible spiritual knowledge, which means a lot of sadhana. So these sattvic actions, which is based on this sattvic lifestyle, it requires a predominance of sattva guna, of course. Okay, does a jiva's true nature change depending upon one's stage of life? So this second question is not related to the first much. It's more related to those stages of one's life, as a student, and then a provider, and then a retiree, and then as a sannyas. So that's a jiva's nature, true nature, change depending upon one's stage in life. Thinking consciousness as Sat Chitananda is our true nature, regardless of stage of life. Vedanta is available in all stages, so that is available to a jiva when they are ready, qualified to receive it. So it's David is making a good point here. He's talking about a human being's true nature. Okay, so what's the nature of everyone? So as we know, the nature of everyone is Satchitananda, is existence, consciousness, limitlessness. This is the nature of everyone. But we begin understanding our secondary apparent nature as a jiva. So everybody wants to find out, okay, so now my duty here is to be a student and to follow the rules of my father, my mother, and society, and grow, because later on I'm going to be a provider to my own family. So I need to be prepared. I need to be properly equipped with knowledge and discipline and good manners and good habits and so on. So this initial phase, the individual is growing, studying, following that Dharma of a student. And the first thing that he wants to know is, okay, what is my nature? And almost invariably people say, what is my nature? So is my nature to become a football player? Is my nature to become a medical doctor? Or is my nature to become a teacher or a musician? So everybody asks that question, because as they start studying and say, okay, I need to see what I am good for. This is the jiva nature, is one's secondary apparent nature as a jiva. Yeah? So there's a jiva, true nature. We know true nature is consciousness. But secondary apparent nature as a jiva, what is the configuration of my jiva? What is most natural to me to do, to act, to participate in society, that I can benefit the society the most. Because as we know, if I am a musician, inside, but I try to be a butcher, or I do any other thing because it gives me more money. I may not be a good contributor to society because I'm going against my jiva nature, my secondary nature as a jiva. So to understand our secondary nature is important. You understand? But it needs to be, it might need to be sacrificed in certain circumstances, as we saw in that case, Claudio. There are some circumstances that my jiva nature must be override, yeah, or you know, must come second in certain circumstances because my role, my duty in society may come first. You understand? Depending on the circumstance. So does a jiva's true nature change depending on the stage of life? Well, what do you think? Does it change? Because I mean, we all have this inner tendencies, our talents, our of doing something. I remember myself when I was young and I need to study, and then I need to go to college, and then I choose to do something that could manifest quickly as a profession to me. So I went into doing something that was not really what was my natural tendency, but it was something that on the practical level could produce short-term results and make me a good earner. You understand? So I need to do something for the money side. So I did a certain engineering course. Okay, but it had nothing to do with my thing. And then 1, 2 years into college, I understood. Oh my God, this is a big mistake. I should be studying psychology. But I immediately realized, no, this is not for me. Psychology is for me. You understand? But it was a bit late. I almost dropped off, and then but I didn't. I struggled, but I finished that, and it was something so not right for me that after 3, 4 years I just dropped off. I just left behind the profession, and I became a spiritual vagabond. I was just going around, you know, as a devotee of Osho Rajneesh and doing any small jobs in order to survive. You understand? So somebody is in that stage of studying, preparing, and then it grows to become a professional. And then if he is like to begin with something that it is his jiva nature to do, and then it may not change. But in Mita, everything is subject to change. I would say that even our guna configuration, which brings about our tendencies, our talents. So even that is subject to change because everything changes. So we never know, and it's not really a big thing to be so fixated about. No, Jesus, I'm not right. It does not feel right. I lived a few years in my life in Germany, and in Germany I met these certain people on those days, and I learned that the government there was so generous that would give them free education, and then they would get a profession, and then they are working with that profession. Then this friend of mine discovered, no, this is not for me. It's not really my thing. I want to learn a new profession. And go back to the government. The government says, okay, we're going to give you a second chance, but this is going to be the last. We're going to give you another profession. We're going to pay for another 3, 4 years so that you find another job that maybe is going to be more fulfilling to you and you're going to be able to serve society better. So this can give room to a difficult situation if everybody starts changing professions in a kind of governmental structure in which that kind of things are possible. So in the Vedic culture, we say, so just follow the how you say the Dharma, the karma, the Dharma that's present to you. So when it comes by family by family, how you say, family circumstance. For example, oh, I was a plumber because my father was a plumber, my grandfather was a plumber, or I was a carpenter because my father was a carpenter, my grandfather was a carpenter. This is something that becomes more natural and easy for us to follow, you know. So there is a part of this understanding that I started with Swami Paramarthananda some time ago, that he explains that in details. Those are genetic, that is circumstantial, that comes with our life, you know. This is a natural tendency that comes with the family. This is easy, it's more natural because we grow in that environment. And then you move on, you understand? But then somebody may be very fussy and say, no, no, I don't want to follow this. It's, you know, my thing is to do something completely different, you know. So it's not that important, because in Kama Yoga, within this Vedic culture, we say like, okay, if it's not your first most wonderful option to do that, learn to do that with a Kama Yoga spirit in a way that you're going to be happy doing that, because you are serving society in the best possible way, following something that is already, it's in the genetics of your family, you know, it's the genes of your family. Everybody's doing that. Why to go say, no, 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 I don't like this. I want now, I want to be an astronaut. You understand? And then makes a lot of difficulties for oneself and others. So there are different ways to look at that. But in the Vedic, in the scriptural culture, we say like, if you cannot do what you really wish, you know, learn to do what's possible and be as happy as anything, because you do with a certain attitude, you know, which takes us to the Kama Yoga. Kama Yoga is good dharmic actions with this kind of attitude of gratitude, you know, and devotion and reverence, you know, and then we act from that kind of standpoint, that angle, you know, that perspective. Okay, I'm doing what Ishwar has presented me as a potential possibility, you know. So a lot of these things can be said in respect to this choice we do in life about what we do, what we don't do, we don't, if it is really in harmony with my jiva nature or not. And then it comes a point in this process when the individual becomes a retiree, and then in the end we see the structure of these four stages of life presented by the Vedic culture. It comes a point towards the last stage is that whatsoever jiva nature the person has, that has to be left behind, and I have to follow my true nature as Satchitananda, consciousness, and I want to fully recognize my true nature as Satchitananda. No? So that nature does not change, but very rarely people realize that that is my true nature. And Bhagwan Ramana Maharaj realized that at the age of 17, that's why he could leave behind family and everything and just follow Shiva in Tiruvannamalai, the mountains of Arunachal and so on. Vedanta is available in all stages, so does available to a Jiva when they are ranked and qualified. Yeah, Vedanta, this knowledge, this fundamental nature is available through all the stages of life, yeah. But some of us only become aware of this true nature at older age of life. No? I mean, not everybody is a spiritual genius like Ramana that became aware of it at the age of 17. You know? So, anything else? What else can we say?
I always think if it is possible to have like a good how we say, classification, can we say, about what we can dharmically say it is much important, like not injury is the first thing, but maybe I'm too much structured, too much I am too schematic maybe, but if I don't know if it is possible to have a clear distinction, classification, and say this is the most important thing, not injury, for example. Then you have to see the circumstances, and then I don't know. I don't know if it's
look at the
possible.
confusion. Look at the confusion in the mind of Arjuna in that context. You know, he is the general, and then when he comes there, he knows that Dharma comes first, and he had to reestablish Dharma. You know, because Duryodhana and his army was just going to destroy society and oppress it and so on. He needs to do that. And he knew everything about Dharma, but at the very moment when he got there in the field, he became aware that there were a lot of lovely, beloved, friendly parents, you know, and relatives, you know, on the other side. And he became emotional, he became sentimental about that. And then he started having difficulty to discriminate and understand what was Dharmic there. And he started getting this confusion, you know. No, I know Dharma. Dharma is no injury. How can I injure these people? There are a lot of beautiful people there. You understand how easy it is for us to get stuck and confused. You know, I mean, I know I should not injure these beautiful people. But, and then we need to detach. We need to detach emotionally from the situation and have an objective view. And then as we see the things objectively, say, I know these are beautiful people, but somehow they happen to be on the side of Duryodhana. For whatsoever reason, they also need to be destroyed. You understand? So it's
so the only no, so I mean the only yes, please talk.
Go.
I want to say the only thing that we can really be dharmic, it's also to know the self, to be in the self. It's the only way that I have a real objective view. So I need this is the only way. And then also, of course, knowing Ishwara and knowing the law of Dharma, but I need to know who I am, to the real self.
Well, as we know, we often say that this spiritual knowledge is really complete when it's knowledge of not only our nature as sattva, but the nature of Nitya as Ishwara, Jiva, and Jagat. You understand? So we need to have this complete knowledge. But what you say is also correct, because unless we know for sure that my nature is sattva, the mind has a hard time to develop and maintain enough sattvic clarity, you know, to make this day-to-day, moment-to-moment decisions between what is dharmic and what is not dharmic. I often say that, I mean, it's so difficult to make these dharmic, adamic discriminations in day-to-day, you know. You need to have a very sattvic mind, a very clear mind to discriminate between Dharma and Adharma. Okay, it becomes easier when you have discriminate your nature as Satya, you know, from Mitya. Okay, Dharma and Adharma is within Mitya, and the Jiva lives in Mitya. So if you know for clear, for sure, doubtlessly that you are Satya, and you don't need to be all disturbed about your desires and fears. And then your mind is more sattvic, more contemplative, more discriminative, and then you can discriminate better between. So it helps to know. It's totally healthy. It's the best way to develop a sattvic mind. To have more sattva is to know your true nature, because that kills or burns most of those binding vasanas, likes and dislikes. You understand? Because you know I don't need to do all of that. So that is a fact. But yet, even knowing who you are is quite a challenge to be in me to discriminate such a dharma from a dharma. You understand?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
What do you think, Elizabeth?
Well, at my age, doesn't matter. I know I don't have any doubts of where I am.
They say, we tend to say that discriminate satya from mithya. It is very, very simple. Satya is the subject and mithya is the object. So satya does not change. The object, they do change. So it's very simple. But because it's very subtle, discriminate satya, pure limitless consciousness from the intellect. It's very subtle discrimination. And then this simple discrimination becomes not easy because of the subtlety of discriminating pure limitless consciousness from the intellect, which is the agent doing the very discrimination, you understand? So it's very subtle. On the other hand, in Nietzsche, discriminating Dharma from Dharma, it is easier because it's a little bit more tangible, a little bit more clear, not as subtle, you know. But the complexities of media as such, you know, that makes it also not easy, understand? It's not really easy to keep discriminating and presenting a very, very proper, adequate response on a moment to moment that respects your true nature, your jiva nature, and the nature of the field, the nature of Ishwar with its laws. So it's not always easy, not even for the yanis, you know. I mean, the yanis living as a sannyasi may be a little bit easier than the yanis living as householders. But I hear from Swami Paramarthananda that to be a sannyas also has a lot of problems to it, you know. Sometimes he talks about that. So just to close this chapter, did we enter Kama Yoga? No, Kama Yoga in the book of the big picture. No, no. The last section that we saw was the four stages of life. Is that? Can anyone tell me, Claudio?
Yes, four.
Okay. Then we did look into the four stages, and then there is one passage here that I would like to say. After we go through the learning stage as a students, and then we come and we grow. Gradually over time, a person's career winds down and the kids leave home. The retirement stage of a life begins. So this retirement stage is when within that structure, Vedic structure, one has all the time available to study the scriptures. Huh? And then the fourth, in the last, the following that, the fourth stage of life is based upon a Dharma constant of life. The individual can enjoy not only accept, but also contribute. No, should culminate in moksha. According to the scripts, all human accomplishments should culminate in moksha. Without moksha, the human life is incomplete. That's very nice. That is why the scriptures keep the material accomplishments as incidental goals and the spiritual accomplishment as the ultimate and the primary goal of a human life. With regard to moksha and the four stages of life, there is the option for an individual to skip the householder and retirement stage altogether and jump straight into renunciation stage. So we're talking about those young people that somehow they have no inclination to go through the household, you know, being a professional, put up family, and then be a retiree and so on. So they can skip all of that and become become a sannyas at very early stage. These renunciants are called sannyas. They have little desire for worldly goods and a strong spiritual desire. This spiritual desire, of course, is not clearly understood in the minds of these very young people, but it is because it's a vasana, a spiritual vasana that compels one to leave everything behind, the same way it happened to me when I left my profession, my career, my job, everything, and I became a devotee of Osho Rajneesh. So those are things that are not easy to explain and much less to be understood by the samsaris around us, you know. The question arises, however, as to how moksha is to be attained. For this, Vedanta outlines a threefold discipline, sadhanas, that will ultimately lead the person to liberation. So we're talking about Kama Yoga, Upasana Yoga, and Vedanta, Shravana, Manana, and Nididhyasana. So that takes us to Kama Yoga, which is the next chapter here, Kama Yoga. So we can look into this one. We know Kama Yoga. We have studied Kama Yoga several times, but it's always good to study it a little bit more and discuss it a little bit more to make sure that we understood it correctly, right? How to be a Kama Yoga and the importance of Kama Yoga is preparing and helping us develop the qualifications for the Yana Yoga, Vedanta's Yana Yoga. Okie dokie. So we keep Kama Yoga for our next class. If anybody has any other contribution, please do so. Any question? Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. I see the pictures. You guys' pictures, they're all frozen with the exception of Claudio. So, okay. Are you with me? Are you all with
Thank
me?
you.
Okay. Okay. Namaste. We meet again next Monday. Ishwar willing, of course. Much love.
Thank you. Ciao.
Ciao, ciao.
Okay, thanks. Thanks, Alinda. Bye now.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you.